Hello everyone. As I've mentioned before, I think in a couple videos now, I'm having surgery soon. And I did kind of promise you guys that I would open up about that for anyone who's curious. So this video is going to be rather TMI. Some people might call it gross, because I'm going to go into complete detail and be very blunt. So if you don't like hearing about surgery, if you don't like hearing about blood, if you don't like hearing about women's periods, if you don't like hearing about those things, if you're squeamish or, you are just grossed out by that stuff, then don't watch this video. Just don't. So anyway, also, I am sipping a beer at the moment. I can do what I want in my own goddamn YouTube videos. I'm grown up with a job, so if you don't like the fact that I'm sipping beer making a YouTube video, fuck you, I don't care, just quit watching. Anyway, so yeah, I'm having surgery soon. So, but let's wind the clock back to when I went through puberty. I think I got my first period like maybe a month before I turned 13, which that's average these days. I think it's average for most females first start ovulating and getting their period between the ages of like 12 to 14, I think. I mean, some girls get it a little bit later. I had a friend in high school who was 16 and still had not gotten a period yet. And when she finally did get her period, it was very irregular, it was very heavy, she was miserable, so they had to put her on birth control pills to help regulate her period for her so she didn't have to suffer. But anyway, I got my first period, and like everything was fine for like the first couple of years. And then when I was 14, one day I noticed I started having these really bad pains, like stabbing sensations, down in my lower abdomen. It was mostly on the left, and so I told my mom about it, and she goes, "Oh, it's normal for you to have some pain when you're having your period." I said, "But I'm not on my period." I'm like, this has been going on for like a month. I've had this terrible pain. Like if we went over a bump in the car or on the school bus, it hurt. I felt like I was being stabbed. And when I bent over, it hurt like I was being stabbed. If I like sat down, like plopped my butt down in a seat, it hurt. I felt like I was being stabbed down in my lower abdomen. And so another month went by and the pain came back really bad. Again, like it subsided for a little while, then it came back. And I remember that summer, I think it was right after the 8th grade, because it was, I think it was a couple of months before, actually during the summer between 8th grade and when I started high school, I finally convinced my mom that something was wrong. And so she had me, go to the doctor, and they did an ultrasound, and the doctor who was dealing with me at the time called my mother and said, "This is going to sound very strange, but your daughter has ovarian cysts." And so apparently this doctor, since he was not a gynecologist or he didn't deal with those sorts of things, he was just a general pediatrician, and he had to do a little bit of research and consult other doctors in order to get the information he needed to be able to explain to my mom that I had ovarian cysts. And so it turned out that it's not, according to what I was told then, it wasn't that unusual for teenage girls to get ovarian cysts. And these cysts would probably swell to maybe the size of a marble at most, and then shrink away and just go away on their own. Nothing that required any kind of invasive surgery or anything like that. So that went, the cysts and the pain finally stopped for a while, like by the time I graduated from high school. And things were normal. I got on the birth control pill when I was like 18 years old, and started gaining massive amounts of weight very quickly. Started having painful periods, and then actually right after I got off the pill was actually when I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 20 years old. And my pregnancy was absolutely miserable. I had gestational diabetes, my blood sugar was out of control, I was gaining tons of weight. My back was killing me. I had this strange sensitivity to metal while I was pregnant with my daughter. Like if I shaved my legs, I would itch and burn really bad. It was so horrible. But I guess it was just, I just assumed that was normal in textbook, I guess. But labor and delivery went fine pretty much. Then after I healed up and everything, like it went right back to the way it was before. The bad heavy periods, periods that last more than just 5 days. like more like 7 or 10 days. And the bad cramps, the pain, and everything, it all just kind of came back. And then by the time I hit my mid-20s, it seems like things were normal for a while. I got normal periods. They lasted less than 5 days, and it wasn't like interfering with my life. I wasn't having to plan my days off or having to plan when I did certain things around when I might be bleeding. And so, anyway, speed the clock up again till about, it was last January. It was January of 2015, actually. I had broken up with my ex, and I had met the gentleman who I'm currently involved with. And since he lives in Ohio, he lives 6 hours from here. So when when we first had our first actual date, the only time we had met each other before was at a Birthday Massacre concert. And so we had not really dated or slept together during that time. So, but he was supposed to be driving into town to visit with me so we could actually spend time together. And I wanted to have some form of birth control and be ready, so I had an IUD put in. And when I went in for the initial consultation for the IUD, it was a Mirena, by the way. The doctor did tell me, like, this actually is good since you have a problem with heavy periods and whatnot. The IUD releases a hormone locally, which causes the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, to slowly become thinner and thinner. And she said initially, when you first get it put in, it takes a few months because you will bleed more, actually, for the first few months because your body's adjusting to it. I said, okay, that's fine. When they had it put in, it hurt, but it was over pretty quickly. I went straight home after that, and I actually did miss half of a day of work because basically you can't plan a day off from work to have an IUD put in because they tell you, oh, give us a call when you start your period, when you get your period, and then your first day of like full force flowing is when they put it in. So like I actually called them the day before, it was a Friday, and I called them on Thursday and said I'm spotting, I'm going to get my period, and I'm getting my period or whatever, and they said, okay, we'll come in tomorrow and we'll have the IUD put in. So the next morning, I went to work in the morning, and then after that I explained to someone in the office that I can't come back this afternoon, I have to go in for this procedure, the only time they can do it right is today, and I'm going to be in pain afterwards, so they're like, okay, as long as you have a doctor's note. So anyway, got the IUD put in, and it was so weird because for like 3 months straight, I bled for 2 weeks, and then I was off for 2 weeks. Bleeding for 2 weeks, then off for 2 weeks. And it really was driving me crazy. But I held out the hope that eventually, like, it would become, like, things would level out and I'd get normal periods and then they would taper off. Because the idea for women who get IUDs is they're supposed to eventually get very, very light periods, or some get no period at all. And so that didn't happen for me. I just kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and I got cramps, and they did tell me cramping will be normal, but the cramping that I got was every bit as bad as labor contractions. I mean, it radiated into my back, I could feel it in my rib cage, I could feel it like down to my hips, and it radiated down my legs, and I was like at work driving my bus having these terrible sensations and having to keep a straight face. It was miserable. It wasn't the IUD though, it was my body. Apparently my body just didn't want it, just didn't like it, because actually this January that we just had, January of 2016, I was in the shower and was checking my threads like you're supposed to. If you have an IUD, you're supposed to insert a finger into your vagina while you're in the shower and check to make sure the threads that dangle down out of your cervix are where they're supposed to be. If they feel long, you're supposed to call the doctor because it could mean that the IUD has moved into your cervix. I stuck my finger in to check, and the threads felt long, and then I touched my opening of my cervix. I could feel the IUD actually protruding out. My uterus just didn't want it, it had forced it down into my cervix. And so I'm like, oh, great. I'd already been to the doctor for like 3 ultrasounds because of scares. And also I had a bad cyst last June. I had an ovarian cyst back in June that grew to the size of a golf ball. Like a golf ball or like a ping pong ball. If there's something around here I can like show you, but about like that, I guess. Like if you take your index finger and your thumb and make a little circle. That's how big the thing got, and it had ruptured. And the pain was horrible. I ended up in the emergency room, and I got infected because that night, like the night of the worst pain I had a fever of almost 103. I mean, I felt like my brains were going to scramble, and I was just so miserable. But anyway, I had that cyst, and it was the first cyst I'd had in several years, and it scared the crap out of me because the pain was just unbearable. But anyway, I finally had the IUD taken out when I felt it protruding out of my cervix. They did an ultrasound, determined that it had moved. It was not effective where it was, and if they left it in there, it could become embedded in my endometrium and then have to be removed surgically, or it just wasn't effective where it was. And so they couldn't put it back in place. That was out of the question. So they determined that there's no sense in putting another one in there, so they took it out. And it also was over very quickly. And I was placed on birth control pills. I was placed on Junel. And as far as effectiveness, the Junel was effective, but the bleeding started and just didn't stop. I was bleeding so heavily for the first month I was on the Junel that actually I was saturating pads so quickly that it was pointless. I actually had to knock on my uncle's door and borrow some adult diapers because I was bleeding that badly. I got so sick, I felt anemic, and I actually missed almost a week of work because of this nonsense. And I was passing these huge chunks of endometria. I mean, like the bleeding was like thick like brownie batter, and the chunks that I was passing were like the size of like my thumb, maybe bigger. It was just so disgusting, and I was so miserable. And so there was really not much they could do to resolve that. Long story short, I got off of the Junel and decided to talk to my doctor about the possibility of just having my tubes tied, because since obviously conventional forms of birth control don't work for me, my body just doesn't want it. I can't adjust to it. Even no matter how effective it is, I shouldn't have to suffer. If it's making me suffer, I can't handle it. I mean, I can't be miserable like that, bleeding. It's just, no, it doesn't make sense to suffer. So we discussed tubal ligation. And she explained to me that it would be done laparoscopically, which means they make an incision right underneath your belly button, and then 2 more incisions down down closer to the base of the pelvis. And basically, what they would do was inflate the abdomen with some kind of gas. I think it's CO2. I could have that wrong, but they inflate the abdomen so that they can insert like a camera and a light, a scope. Basically, laparoscopy, that's why it's called that. So they can see what they're doing, and the other 2 incisions are for various instruments and tools that they have to use in order to like hold something still while they cut something else, or to cauterize something so that it doesn't bleed when they have to cut through it. And so she said that they were going to do a salpingectomy, which was that's what it's called when your fallopian tubes are removed. And she said to alleviate those, since you're done having children, there's no reason for you to get periods anymore either, and you've been getting heavy periods anyway, and so let's just go ahead and also do an endometrial ablation. And the method that we're going to use for that is called the NovaSure method, which they obviously put a scope in to check the uterus to make sure you don't have fibroids or anything. And then what they do is they dilate the cervix and insert this metal rod that has this mesh that expands out of the end of it. And the mesh, I'm not sure if it's electricity or what it is that how it does it, but it basically cauterizes the inside of the uterus so that it can't regrow endometria, and therefore the endometria doesn't have to be shed. If there's no endometria to shed or to slough every month, then you stop getting periods. Or they become so light, like barely noticeable. So that was the original plan. Now, all the while, like, I've always had pain, and I think I just kind of I kind of yielded to it and accepted the fact that I'm going to have pain. It didn't occur to me that I didn't have to really suffer that much with the pain. But then, like 2-3 weeks ago, I started getting the really horrible pain deep in my abdomen again, and like the stabbing sensation. And I'm like, here we go. I'm going to have another cyst. And so just to make sure though, because the doctor did tell me Since she goes, well, we're going to, we scheduled me for Monday, March 28th, which is a week from Monday. Today's Saturday, by the way. Saturday, it's 6:15 in the afternoon, evening, whatever. But anyway, she said if you have any pain or anything weird happens, you need to let us know so we can check it out so that we're more prepared for what we might find when we make the incisions and bloat you up and look in there. And so I called up the gynecologist, I think it was day before yesterday, the office, and explained to what the triage, like the people who answered the phone, what was going on. And they sent the message to the nurse practitioners, and then one of them, called me back and said, go ahead and come in for an ultrasound. We just want to make sure we can see what's going on here before surgery. Make sure this is not something that's going to hinder the surgery or cause us to have to either move the date of surgery up or postpone it. So, which makes perfect sense. So I missed half a day of work, and on ultrasound, everything looked perfectly normal. She she showed me like the paperwork of like the how like the percentage of like how thick my endometria was and other various things they look at in an ultrasound. No cysts, nothing strange going on that they could see on ultrasound. So and it was a transvaginal ultrasound, by the way, and it's not that scary. So if you have to have one, just get the fuck over it and just deal with it. It's not that big a deal. It's not that scary. It's over quick if you just cooperate with the ultrasound tech and just deal with it. It's not a big deal, okay? Anyway, it's not to me anyway. I mean, I'm a very mind over matter kind of person, so to me, it wasn't that big a deal. But anyhow, nothing strange on ultrasound. Everything looked normal. And so she went ahead and had me go ahead and undress from the waist down and lay back on the table so that she could do an exam. And then she did the exam where they put on a rubber glove and get some lubrication on their fingers, and then they insert the two fingers to determine like where in the vagina is and the uterus is, and then they press down like on your belly. And she kept, she would push down and ask me, okay, does it hurt there? Does it hurt there? Does it hurt there? And basically, what she was able to determine from all of this was that my uterus is just inflamed for no apparent reason. Just no apparent reason, but that's the main source of the pain. The fact that it tends to hurt on the left, that's just consequential because actually that's where a portion of the bowel lays across. So if something is swollen and inflamed, it's going to hurt more on that side simply because it's got something like bumped up against it. So she goes, you know what? She goes, if you want us to, we will take this thing out. And I'm like, you mean a hysterectomy? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, I just didn't know what to say. I'm like, yes, please take it out. Please take it out. I don't want it anymore. I'm not using it anymore. It's a pain in the ass. This is just awful. I just want it gone. But at the same time, I didn't want her to think that I'm like one of those weirdos who like, cooks up weird reasons in their head to have surgeries, like a hypochondriac or something. I didn't want her to think that. It kind of stunned me when she first suggested it because I honestly was not expecting her to suggest this. And she goes, I'm not trying to force you into anything, you need to, she goes, it's strictly up to you. And I said, it's not a bad idea. I said, well, but what about the downtime? And she said, the way they do it nowadays, if they do it laparoscopically, they don't make the cut like 6 inches or 4 inches long like they used to remove a uterus. They don't do that anymore. So the downtime, instead of being 6 weeks of no work, I could have my surgery on Monday, March 28th, be off that week at work, and then the next week is spring break, which is very convenient. I have plenty of time to recover. And she said, you can go right back to work the Monday after spring break. She said, you'll be a little uncomfortable. You'll have certain, restrictions. You won't be able to lift anything. But as far as like being at work so you can get your paycheck and stuff, you'll be fine. And I'm like, well, then I was thinking about it a little bit more. And I said, well, okay. I asked her, how bad is the discomfort afterwards? I mean, because I don't want to be totally doing nothing during spring break. Like, if there's that week off of work, I want to be able to be productive. She said, well, that's strictly up to you. She goes, you can't, obviously you're not going to be able to run a marathon or anything, it just depends on what your pain tolerance is and, whether or not you think you can do certain things, but, you have to use your discretion. And she said that I wouldn't need to spend one night in the hospital. So, but in either way, I'm supposed to go back to the doctor's office on Wednesday for blood work, and then again on Thursday at the hospital. Thursday I have to go back and see the gynecologist again, and she's going to talk to me some more, and she's actually, going to go ahead and put it, enter it into the system and get it, on paper that I'm having a hysterectomy. And so, yeah. I mean, but there's basically the idea is that since they're going to ablate my endometria anyway, so the goal is no periods and no babies, and they're going to take my tubes out anyway, it just seems like a much better idea to just go ahead and take the damn thing out. I mean, that way it'll eliminate uterine cancer. I mean, that my chances of that will be basically nil. So, anyway, there's that. So, yeah, so if this is TMI, I don't know. So, but anyway, but yeah, actually, if you kind of scour the wonderful universe that is YouTube, and just type in laparoscopic salpingectomy or laparoscopic hysterectomy, you'll actually find a lot of videos that'll kind of show you what's entailed. And it's really interesting. I mean, these doctors are performing these surgeries. All they have to go by is what they see on a monitor, in front of them, and they have these tools that they're using, and maybe another person using another tool down here and stuff, and it's kind of incredible. I mean, if you're grossed out, if you really get really queasy, really easy, I don't recommend watching them, but it kind of helped put some of my fears to rest, because I got to actually see what goes on during these surgeries. So, and I've also been able to hear from other YouTubers about what their particular experience was like and what their recovery was like. Most women I've seen do YouTube videos talking about their post-surgical discomforts and whatnot after having a laparoscopic procedure done, saying that maybe the biggest thing that was painful to them was the gas. Obviously while they still have you on the table, they'll try and suck out as much of the gas as they can to squish your skin and everything back down where it belongs. It's behind the muscle wall, by the way, where they inject the gas to blow you up. So anyway, but they can't get all of it out, and obviously it doesn't do anything bad to you. Otherwise they wouldn't use it. But when the little bits of it are going to be left, and since gas, bubbles in water travel upward, right? Gas travels upward. And so what happens is the gas, apparently little bubbles of it work their way up under your muscle wall and stuff, up into your chest cavity or into your shoulders or around your rib cage and the neck area. And so these women have said that actually the gas trying to work its way out and it ending up in the shoulders, the shoulder pain, the pain from the gas escaping, or the gas trying to work its way out, was worse than the pain from the incisions. So, I'm used to neck and shoulder pain anyway. So, but apparently they give you the good drugs or whatever after you have this procedure done. They give you, for some pretty decent pain meds and stuff. So, I mean, I have problems. I have weird problems with pain meds. It's either they do nothing at all for me, or they just completely just put me in freaking higher than a hippie on a rocket ship ride. I mean, out in outer space, totally just zonked out like a zombie. So that's what pain medicine does to Michelle. Oh, and also during my downtime, I'll most definitely be doing videos probably. So you'll get to see me high on pain meds. That should be interesting. I kind of wonder what fuel for creativity it might bring on though, because every time I'm sick and I'm on medicine and stuff, my brain, I get all these cool ideas for things I want to make. So, but yeah, so this is the TMI, the laparoscopic hysterectomy pre-surgery discussion video, I guess. I'm happy to answer questions if you guys want to leave questions down in the comment thingy. If you know me on Facebook, you can also, ask me questions there, or if you know me and you have my phone number, you can call me or whatever. But yeah, So, oh, and hopefully my boyfriend will be driving down from Cleveland while I'm having my surgery. Right now the plan is that I'm going to drive up next weekend to visit him, possibly. See, he's not going to know if he got the days off he requested. He's not going to know if he got them until kind of the last minute, which really freaking sucks. I mean, that's just total bollocks. But anyway, he's not going to know until the last minute. And so, on the off chance that he does not get to come down here to see me, if I can just spend like a Saturday and or a Friday, Saturday, Sunday or something, like a Saturday or whatever with him next weekend, that will still put me very much at ease. That will help me not feel as nervous, not as afraid. So, I mean, like I said, I'm very mind over matter, but at the same time, you know, at the same time, I don't want to be completely alone around the time when I have this done. So, I mean, I'm going to be down, like, on my back in bed probably for a couple of days at least. So, if I can get up there to visit with him and we can, you know, have some fun together and just spend some time together, then I won't be quite as nervous and terrified. So, and if he does come down here, then he'll be driving down, I think, on Monday, and then he'll go home Wednesday, I think. So, also, since there's a possibility I'm going to have the hysterectomy instead of the self-injectomy, they're talking about bumping the surgery back to Tuesday, so, I don't know. Yeah, it's not as, I'm sure it's not as scary as what it sounds like, but at the same time, I really am, like, nervous. Like, I mean, like, my nerves are dangling from threads, right now. And I'm sure, you know, at some point, I'm either going to become totally terrified or I'm going to be totally okay with it. I don't think there's going to be a gray area with me. I just tend to have rather exaggerated emotional reactions to things. It's just part of how I am. I mean, I take pills for it, but they only go so far. So, yeah. And I've been talking for quite a while now, for at least 20 minutes, maybe. So, I guess I'm going to turn off the camera and finish my beer, and I'll see you kids later. But I will be posting a video. I'll do a video, like, of cataloging, like, as I see the doctor and as I get blood works done and stuff. There'll be other videos about this coming up, so. And I'm also going to try to do more DIY videos, so. There we go. So, yeah, I'm going to quit talking now.